Namaste. Let us discuss about climate change, which is a harsh reality today, and globally, the entire Earth is going to suffer due to change in the climate required for biosphere. Friends, climate change has been considered as global warming at a time, and before that, it was considered by especially economists and industrial lobby as a myth. They were thinking, which was largely supported with an understanding of geology, that climate changes with time, but the kind of climate change we are experiencing and we are talking is different than that. It is different than the geogenic climate change. It is anthropogenic climate change. Why it was earlier thought as global warming as a outcome of climate change has been changed now, and now global climate change is considered as an outcome of multiple environmental changes in unidirection. This is change in temperature. Temperature is increasing day by day. Average global temperature is increasing in all ecological and ecosystems, all biomes, in one direction, in direction of increasing average global temperature, average surface temperature in each ecosystem. Similarly, the rainfall pattern has changed very rapidly. We are observing a very high intensity rainfall in short duration. Timings of rainfall has also changed very abruptly, and it is impacting the disasters like flood and drought and productivity of crops, forest, and the entire primary productivity is getting impacted due to such abrupt changes in rainfall. Similarly, climate change has caused a very serious change, very abrupt change, very sudden change in wind pattern, and it is increasing natural disasters. Several oceanic uh, oceanic disasters have been observed very frequently with high intensity and high frequency in past few years. Sea level is increasing, and increase in sea level is proportional to melting of ice cap in our reservoirs in cold areas. Most of the glaciers have been documented to be reduced, their caps have been disappearing, and the water is largely dispersing. Finally, it is getting accumulated in sea and increasing sea level. Increase in sea level is very serious for the entire biodiversity of seashore. We can try to understand that most of the civilizations have been established throughout the world around the rivers and around the sea, and that the entire business, entire city establishment, villages, and green cover, microbial resources, all are in severe threat. The terrestrial organisms cannot survive in aquatic conditions. So if water will cover them, they will die. They cannot live in anaerobic conditions. So, sea level increase alone can impact very serious impacts on water, on say water composition of sea, on entire sea resources, on biodiversity, on coastal agriculture, and on entire economy based on sea products. Further, it will cause a lot of burden for adaptation. Adaptation means the movable life forms and movable properties of that flooded area can move towards certain safer areas, but it will account for high cost in entire transport and movement, and new areas will be occupied which are available for some other productive work. So that way, this is one very, very serious happening expected to happen in future. Certain countries like Malaysia may they are having a threat to get buried in the ocean. So you can just imagine how severe impacts are going to happen due to increase in sea level, which is observed, and during last few years, a very significant increase in sea level have been observed. Extreme events are largely disasters and environmental stresses, drought, flood, uh, storms, rather volcanoes, or volcano eruption, all these extreme events are happening very rapidly now. Salinization of a large area and desertifications are increasing very rapidly these days. So, climate change is going to impact the entire economic and biodiversity related biodiversity related resources uh, due to these happenings like increase in temperature, abruption in rainfall pattern, and increase in sea level, increase in extreme events, etc. There can be regional variations, no doubt. All areas are not going to get impacted similarly. Colder areas, areas with less temperature, can have some benefits. Their temperature will increase, population will shift to those areas, diversity of biological, all kind of biological organisms will increase in those areas, and those areas are going to be new hotspot for biodiversity and economic activities. But simultaneously, we must understand that these areas, colder areas, are hilly areas, mountainous areas, and they are very fragile to disasters and environmental eruptions. So, we have observed a lot of flood and disasters in Himalayan region, in India too, and in other region of the world, forest fire, and so many disasters are happening. So, in one way, the potential of those colder areas will be better for productivity and habitat for human and all other life forms, but simultaneously they are not built naturally for bearing that kind of load, and they are fragile. They, they have their own ecosystem, and by migration of people, their ecosystem will change, their bearing capacity will get affected, and we shall observe a lot of changes in those areas too, in addition to very, uh, very serious kind of frequent disasters in those areas. So, the very sacred kind of natural resources which are a very long-term resource, natural resource, uh, including glaciers, water conservation of carbon through carbon sequestration in various forests, dense forests, and other natural resources, minerals especially, are going to be impacted because of this change. And all biological based industries and food systems are going to be impacted more because uh, these biological forms, are evolved to survive in a given temperature range in presence of a defined oxygen level, defined carbon dioxide level, defined moisture level, and so on.